Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
So today we're digging into a really fascinating stack of sources, all from July 9th, 2025.
Yeah, quite a day. Lots happening.
It really felt packed. Our mission, as always, for you listening, is to cut through all that noise.
Get to the core stuff.
Exactly. Pull out the essential nuggets, connect some dots. We've got global economics, some surprising politics.
Environmental news, too, and some pretty weird planetary science.
It's quite the mix. What stands out right away is just the sheer range of it all.
Definitely. It feels like a whole week crammed into one day's headlines.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Get right into what was happening.
Sounds good. And what's interesting is how these different threads, well, they start to weave together. We're not just looking at what happened, but really trying to understand why it matters for you.
So let's kick off with the economy. Some big shifts here.
Okay.
First thing that jumps out, former President Trump making headlines again, a new tariff.
Right. The sources say a 50% tariff on copper imports.
50%. That's steep. And they also mention semiconductors, pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
They might be next.
Seems like it. The reports indicate those could be future targets.
So what does this actually mean for us, for you? A 50% tariff.
Yeah.
It's not just making copper pricier, is it?
No, it's more than just costs. This is likely a strategic move.
Strategic how?
Well, maybe trying to force manufacturing back onshore or, gain leverage in bigger trade talks. But the key thing for you to understand is that moves like this kind of aggressive protectionism, they often provoke retaliation fast.
Oh, a trade war.
Could spark one, yeah. And that could really jam up supply chains way beyond just copper. Think EVs, construction.
So costs go up for everyone.
Potentially, yes. And availability goes down.
Okay, so speaking of ripples.
Yeah.
The markets. Our sources paint a really striking picture here.
Oh, yeah.
They describe global markets as emotionally numb. Just shrugging everything off. Tariffs, war threats, trade deals going south.
Numb. Wow. They even use the term financial desensitization.
Yeah. Financial desensitization. That's a powerful phrase, isn't it? A bit unsettling.
It really is.
Does this numbness mean things are actually okay, like resilient? Or is it something else, something fragile?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, right? Is it resilience, or has the market just sort of priced in chaos as the new normal? More worrying, maybe it's a kind of denial, like ignoring the warning signs.
So what does that mean for you, the listener?
It means those traditional indicators, the ones that usually flash red during geopolitical shocks. They might be muted now.
So you can't rely on the headlines reacting like they used to.
Exactly. You have to look deeper at the fundamentals. Because the real impact, it might just be building up quietly under the surface.
Ready for a delayed reaction.
Could be. A much bigger one, potentially.
Okay, let's pivot from market data to the people making decisions. Political figures, unexpected moves.
Always interesting.
Definitely. Our sources flagged something pretty unusual about the U.S. Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent.
Okay, what's this?
He skipped the G20 Finance Summit in South Africa.
Skip the G20. That's a big deal.
Yeah. And guess where he went instead?
Where?
The Osaka Expo.
An expo instead of the G20 finance ministers.
Right. Seems like a really odd choice. The G20's, critical for global economic coordination.
Absolutely critical. So, yeah, bypassing that for a trade expo, it definitely raises eyebrows.
What could that signal? About U.S. priorities, maybe.
Well, it invites speculation, doesn't it? Maybe a shift in focus.
Right.
Perhaps prioritizing direct bilateral trade deals or focusing on specific industries over that broader multilateral stuff.
So maybe a more inward-looking approach.
Potentially. Or just valuing different kinds of international engagement. For you, it's about reading those signals, figuring out what these choices imply for international cooperation down the road.
Sticking with bold moves and, let's say, direct language. Former President Trump again, he publicly called Putin full of BS.
Wow. Okay, full of glut.
Very. And in the same breath, he promised to send 10 Patriot missile systems to Ukraine.
10 Patriots? That's significant military hardware.
Extremely. So you have this really unfiltered language combined with a major military aid promise. What does that tell us about diplomacy, the Ukraine conflict?
Well, it highlights a very specific communication style, doesn't it?
You could say that.
Kind of mixes that direct, almost casual criticism with very concrete policy action. The language might be meant to signal a really clear break or a very firm stance.
And the Patriots?
That's a serious commitment. Patriots are top-tier air defense. It's a tangible escalation of support.
So for you, the listener,
it's worth thinking about how this combo, the rhetoric and the hardware, impacts things, not just on the ground in Ukraine, but also the wider diplomatic game between major powers.
Could create clarity, but maybe also new tensions.
Exactly. Both are possible.
All right, let's shift continents. News from India. A really interesting mix of domestic stuff and international diplomacy.
Okay.
There were significant student strikes across India, and the timing is what's really key here. They happened right when Prime Minister Modi was on a big diplomatic world tour.
Ah, interesting timing indeed. Where was he traveling?
Ghana, Argentina, Brazil. The sources call it a BRICS world tour.
BRICS, right. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, that group of emerging economies.
So these student strikes happening while he's on this high-profile BRICS tour.
Yeah.
What's the significance there, and why those specific countries?
Well, the tour itself really underscores India's strategic focus on this BRICS bloc.
As a counterweight to the West.
Increasingly, yes. They're building alternative structures for trade, finance. So Modi's stops are about cementing those alliances, diversifying India's influence.
Finding new partners, new economic avenues.
Exactly. All while managing these significant protests back home. It shows that complex balancing act leaders face, right? Domestic issues versus global ambitions.
Definitely a tightrope walk.
Yeah. For you, it highlights that interplay. Global stage, domestic stage happening at once.
Okay, now let's talk about the planet itself. Because, wow, it seemed to be having quite a day. Some pretty stark environmental news first.
Unfortunately, yes.
Europe caught in a major heat wave. The sources report 2,300 excess deaths.
2,300, that's a devastating number.
Primarily in Greece, Spain, and France.
Yeah.
And the source explicitly links it to climate change.
As expected.
That number, 2,300 deaths, it really hammers home the urgency, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What does this specific human cost tell us?
It makes it incredibly real. It connects those abstract climate trends we talk about to immediate, tangible tragedy. These deaths in Greece, Spain, France, they show how vulnerable our systems are. Healthcare infrastructure, they get pushed to the breaking point by extreme weather.
And it's happening more often.
Exactly. More frequent, more intense. So for you, this isn't just data.
Yeah.
It's about the real human cost and the critical need for adaptation, for mitigation, now.
Okay, and then maybe the strangest piece of news from July 9th.
Go on.
The planet is literally speeding up.
Wait, what? Speeding up?
Yeah. July 9th, 2025 was officially the shortest day on record. The Earth spun faster.
How much faster?
By 1.6 milliseconds.
1.6 milliseconds. Okay, that sounds tiny.
It does. But it's measurable. They're calling the phenomenon a negative leap second.
A negative leap second. Huh. That's wild.
It is wild. So, okay, 1.6 milliseconds sounds insignificant, but what does this actually mean? Why is it happening?
Well, even though it's tiny, the fact we can measure our planet's rotation changing like that is pretty remarkable.
What causes it?
It's likely complex stuff, interactions way down in the Earth's core, maybe ocean currents, atmospheric changes, lots of factors.
Okay, but does it affect us?
You won't feel it, no. But it poses real challenges for our technology.
How so?
Think about global timekeeping. GPS, satellite navigation, even financial trading systems. They rely on incredibly precise atomic clocks.
So if the Earth's day length is changing, even by milliseconds.
It throws off that synchronization. We might actually need to adjust our global timescale. So for you, it's just this profound reminder, right? That the Earth is dynamic, constantly changing in subtle ways.
We're noticing these tiny shifts now.
Science capturing these incredibly fine details. It might even force changes to our tech infrastructure.
Well, okay, back to Earth, specifically the economy again.
Right.
Because while the planet speeds up, parts of the economy seem to be slowing down. 2 points here for the sources.
What are they?
Oil prices fell again. That was after OPEC Plus decided to pump more oil.
More supply, but prices still falling. That suggests weak demand.
And the second point seems related. Producer prices in China hit a 2-year low.
Ooh, factory prices. That usually means factories are struggling, exports are down.
So falling oil prices despite more supply, and China's factories seeing deflation.
Yeah.
Seem connected, right?
Absolutely. Put them together, and it paints a picture of weakening global demand.
The engine is sputtering a bit.
Seems like it. China's factory prices are a big indicator of global manufacturing health and trade. If they're falling, it suggests less demand worldwide for goods.
Okay.
And the oil price confirms that, suggesting demand for energy is also soft. So for you, it's about seeing how these signals point toward a potential global slowdown.
Not isolated numbers, but part of a bigger trend.
Exactly. Indicating maybe some caution is warranted about economic health.
All right, and finally, Item of the day.
Okay, Marie.
A Nobel Peace Prize nomination.
Oh.
For who?
For Donald Trump, nominated by Israeli PM Netanyahu.
Netanyahu nominated Trump for the Peace Prize.
That's what the sources say.
Wow, okay, that is unexpected.
To say the least. What's the thinking there? The justification? The politics?
Well, the sources don't spell out Netanyahu's exact reasoning, but nominations like this, especially high-profile ones, they're often complex.
How so?
They can be political messages, diplomatic gestures, maybe tied to specific past agreements, like the Abraham Accords, perhaps.
Okay. But it's often as much about the nominator's goals as the nominee's actions. For you, it really invites critical thinking, doesn't it?
Definitely.
About how these big international awards work, who gets nominated, why, and how it's all interpreted in the current, geopolitical climate, especially anything involving the Middle East.
It makes you question the whole process sometimes.
It certainly makes you look at the context behind the headline.
What a day.
Yeah.
July 9th, 2025. We really covered a lot.
We really did.
From those copper tariffs and the sort of numb markets.
To Secretary Bessent skipping the G20.
Trump's comments on Putin, the Patriots for Ukraine.
Modi's BRICS tour during student strikes.
That devastating heat wave in Europe.
And the Earth literally spinning faster.
Plus falling oil and China prices and that Nobel nomination.
Yeah, it shows how all these threads, economic, political, environmental, even planetary relationally, they're all interconnected.
It's a complex tapestry, for sure.
And for you, the listener, the big takeaway isn't just remembering each event.
What is it then?
It's seeing how they connect, how an economic decision impacts diplomacy, how environmental stress has human costs, how even tiny planetary changes matter. It's all linked.
So what final thought should we leave you with today?
Well, thinking about all this, the numb markets, the sheer speed of information, the stark contrast between, say, a heat wave killing thousands and the planet shaving off milliseconds.
Yeah.
It raises a question, maybe about us. In a world that feels like it's constantly speeding up with so much complex information flying around, how do we process it all?
How do we adapt?
How do we make sense of it? How do we find our own equilibrium in all this flux? What cooler perspectives do we need now?
That's a deep thought to end on.
Something to mull over, perhaps, as you go about your day.